Jeb Bush, I repeat, Jeb Bush replied to a question that was asked of him today about his plans for tax reform. And he replied with this statement: My aspirations for the country, and I believe we can achieve it, is 4% growth as far as the eye can see, which means we have to be more productive. Workforce participation has to rise from an all-time modern lows. It means that people need to work longer hours and through their productivity gain more income for their families. That's the only way we're going to get out of this run that we're in. Now, this is complete bullshit from Jeb Bush. And, you guys are familiar with, the last name Bush. We already know it's a lot of stupidity that comes out of that generation. But first of all, Jeb Bush is somebody who, grew up with a goddamn silver spoon in their mouth. They don't really know what it's like for the, average American out here that's on the hustle and bustle, trying to provide for for their families or provide for themselves. This is a guy that is attached from what the real America is happening right now. What everybody is really suffering from, and the real issues that we deal with as Americans as a whole. And Jeb Bush, this got to be one of the stupidest things he said, because first of all, most Americans work 40 hours a week, okay? And due to the extreme cost of living that we have in this country, especially out here in California, people are forced to do a lot more hours than they initially would. 40 hours is pretty much, Monday through Friday, 8 hours a day. But you got people who are doing 48, even some 50 and 60 hours because they got bills to pay, and the cost of living, like I said, is extremely high. So it's forced people to have to work more hours than they initially would. And America is already the highest. I believe I was reading something the other day. It said America has the highest population of people who are working more hours than any other country. Then you look at it from a part-time position, because he tried to cover it up by saying, "Oh, well, I was talking about the people who, work part-time, or people who were unemployed." But here's the thing about people who work part-time: it's not because they want to work part-time, but you have a lot of these places out here that don't want to give out more hours because they don't want that funding to come out of the company business. You got a lot of people who are forced to work part time because that's the only thing that's available right now. It's not because they want to sit on their ass, or they don't want to work, or et cetera, et cetera. It's because, and don't get me wrong, you do have that element of people who don't want to work. I just did a video on a young sister that decided to set men up on online dating in order to get some cash. So we do have that element, but most people want to go out here, they want to be productive, and they want to provide for themselves. And there's a lot of people who are not able to do that because these companies are only giving them 8, 14, 20 hours a week. And I don't know how it is in other states, and as far as the minimum wage and everything, but minimum wage in California is $9. And there's been this talk about minimum wage being raised to $15 out here, which I think is not the answer to the solution. A lot of people are hyped up about it. Oh, $15, woo woo woo, and that's a good start considering it's California. But all that's going to cause is inflation. That means everything around you is going to become higher. On top of that, you're going to have a lot of these companies not hire people at a more faster rate, because they're going to say, okay, well, every person that I hire, I'm going to have to pay them $15. So you know what they're going to do, and they've already started to do this. What they're going to do is they're going to hire, okay, we're going to say, okay, we can hire 15 people for this company. And they're going to put 2, 3, 4, 5 jobs on each individual. That way they don't have to hire a whole bunch of new people to come in and pay them that $15. Okay, so this is what's going to happen. These people don't want to hire anybody because they know that if you give an employee full-time hours, they're eligible for those benefits, which is why a lot of people are only getting part-time hours. So, it's a lot of different scams and tricks that people are doing. But the real issue out here is the cost of living. There needs to be more restrictions on rent that people are paying, foods out here, Gas is high as hell. Just the cost of living in general needs to be lower. And I think once we get to a spot where the cost of living is acceptable for everyone, everybody's able to function and live without just going to work every day just to collect a check, to pay bills, just to go back to work and collect another check just to pay more bills. Once we get into a situation where people are able to live, everything around us will start to change as far as the economy, jobs being created, and people living in general. But raising minimum wage, I get it, but it's not really the solution. But Jeb Bush is, full of shit. This guy, and it's like every week somebody from the Republican Party is coming out saying some nonsense. We just had, that toupee wearing bastard Donald Trump that came out and said something about illegals, which I thought was highly disrespectful. I didn't come out here and do a video, about it because I feel like I need to focus on other issues. But that was disrespectful. And it's like every time, they try to run for office, you got some big political head out here that comes out here and basically fucks it up for all of them. But the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, they're all full of shit. But when it comes to voting, I just think that as a whole, we need to be smart. We do need to go out here and vote. Not voting is not the answer. We do have to vote, but we have to be strategic about how we vote and not voting against our economical interests. So you have to be very smart about this out here. You can't just not vote because that's what they want us to do. But we got also to pay attention to these talking heads out here and these political assholes like Jeb Bush that really don't know what they're talking about. And they're talking out of the side of their ass. But you guys give me your feedback on Mr. Jeb Bush's comments. If you disagree with what I'm saying, let me know why. If you got anything to add, let me know in the comment section. I will leave a link in the description box. But Jeb Bush, you're full of shit. I'm out.